Welcome to Spider-Verse Minute, the tri-weekly podcast where we watch Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse 1 minute at a time. I'm Caroline Slater.
And I'm her brother, Sean.
Today we are doing minute 6. It starts with Miles getting embarrassed and ends with him and his dad talking about Uncle Aaron. For those keeping track, I have titled this minute, The Car Ride.
Yeah, it's pretty much just that. Car ride for a whole minute. But, thankfully, It's not just an exposition dump car ride. It's you really get the feel. This develops more on the relationship that Miles and his dad have, and it's the first time that Uncle Aaron is mentioned, and kind of Miles's relationship with his uncle.
Even kind of foreshadows with his uncle and his dad's relationship with his uncle.
Well, it doesn't really foreshadow in that it's obvious that his dad isn't too comfortable with his uncle. Well, his brother. With Miles's uncle.
Before
brother.
We get to that, because I did write down the lines for that, because I do think it's very revealing of the relationship. I want to talk about, at the very beginning of this minute, two of the dad's lines that I love. So right, if you remember in the previous minute before this, near the end, Miles's dad starts kind of venting and complaining about Spider-Man, and at the beginning of this minute, this cracks me up every time I hear it. Miles's dad goes, "Great ability comes with great accountability," and Miles is like, "That's not even how the saying goes."
Yeah,
Which it's like, I love that switch of the saying.
I think that should become the new saying: is great ability comes great accountability.
Great accountability. I want it on a shirt, to be honest.
And it is such a like
Miles is Spider-Man, but that's the saying on the top.
And it is such a like old man doesn't understand hip young kids things.
Yeah, it's like with the Facebooks, it's like it's just Facebook.
With the My Books and the InstaFace and the Pokemans and the
the Pokemans, that's a classic. And a line almost immediately following that that also cracks me up. It's kind of quiet. It took me a few listens to really hear it, but Dad goes, "I'll give him this, I do like his cereal." So Miles's dad likes Spider-Man's cereal.
Yeah, the Spideyos.
The Spideyos. Apparently good cereal.
Do you think... What kind of cereal do you think that is? Is that like a Honey Nut Cheerios? That are...
I think... I like to think of it... I think they are a mix of like Cheerios, not the Honey Nut, but just plain Cheerios, and then like Frosted Flakes. So like that frosting on Frosted Flakes...
Like
are on Cheerios. Like the plain Cheerios.
Wait.
So Frosted Cheerios, yeah.
What are Frosted Flakes again?
They're cornflakes with like stuff on them.
Oh yeah, it's the tiger one.
Yeah.
I think they're spider flavored.
You think they're spider flavored?
Yeah, obviously. I mean, it's his whole thing. Spider-Man, spider flavored cereal.
Maybe they're not spider flavored, but they're like spider shaped. With just holes in the middle.
Maybe. Spiders with holes in the middle?
Really. Yeah.
Oh god.
Well, because they're called Spideyos.
Yeah.
So they gotta be O's still.
That's true. Okay. That would be terrifying though.
Wouldn't it? Apparently, good cereal.
At least his dad, gives him props when props are due.
Yeah. Good. You can tell that he is a good man. You can tell Miles' dad is a good man because he gives credit where credit is due. Doesn't like what he does, but hey, Spider-Man makes a good cereal. It's probably two of my favorite lines that Miles' dad says, the Spider-Man cereal line and the great ability comes with great accountability. I think what makes that line so funny is Miles says, "That's not even how the saying goes."
Yeah. It's definitely something that his dad has said multiple times, and no matter how many times Miles tries to correct him, he still just gets it wrong.
I wonder if he does it on purpose.
probably a mix of saying it on purpose and not actually remembering what the line is supposed to be.
I love it.
But I just want to bring up, I think his dad does sort of have a good point. He always talks about, or not always, he mentions how, like, oh yeah, Spider-Man, he just kind of comes in, doesn't answer to anybody, and then just, zip zap zoops away.
Zip zap zops.
It doesn't really matter. Whereas, like,
police,
him and his, the other officers on the force have to go in. People know who they are. There is
show their face.
Amount of accountability in.
Yeah. No, there's definitely, yeah. It is. You just got me thinking about really the difference between responsibility and accountability. Because, like, responsibility definitely holds more of a, you take it like it's a personal thing you do. Like, you cannot take responsibility for something. Where accountability, it's like whether you want to or not, you're going to have to face this.
Answer to somebody. Yeah.
That actually makes that line a little more interesting to me now that you brought that up. Do you want to talk a little bit about the dad's voice actor right here before we move on?
Since we're touching on him, Jefferson Davis is voiced by Brian Tyree Henry. One of his earliest credits was on Law & Order in 2009 in the episode Dignity, where he played the character Ben. So, not important enough to get a last name, I guess. His breakout role was as part of the original cast of Book of Mormon in 2011, where he played the character General. He also appeared in the 2018 revival of Lobby Hero, where he was nominated for a Tony Award for Best Featured Actor in a Play. He appears in the HBO series Atlanta, where he portrays Alfred Paperboy Miles, and received a Primetime Emmy for Outstanding Supporting Actor in a Comedy Series.
I'm sorry, hold on. I have to go back a little bit. He played Paperboy named Miles?
No.
His name was Alfred Miles.
Yeah, his name's Alfred Paperboy Miles. Like, his rap name is Paperboy.
Oh, okay. That's awesome to me. That he previously played a character that had the name Miles, and now he's in a movie with a son whose name is Miles. It feels like they casted this guy partly because he has so many references that they could make.
Yeah, it'll be even funnier if Shmeek Moore's next part is him voicing or acting as someone with the first name Morales, which doesn't work as a...
It would come full circle.
Yeah. No, Morales doesn't really work as a first name, but that would be even funnier.
It'd be a nickname. Why do they call you Morales?
It's a long story. And Brian Henry's also in the upcoming film Joker, which is the Joker origin story from DC Comics. Yeah, he's cheating with their distinguished competitors.
I mean, we talked about Chris Pine earlier in the movie, and he kind of did the same thing.
No, he didn't.
Yeah, he did.
No, he hasn't been in it.
Yeah, Chris Pine was in Wonder Woman.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Never mind. I forgot this was a Marvel film for a moment, and I was trying to remember what Marvel movie he was in. I was like, he hasn't been in any Marvel films.
That's what I'm saying.
It's like, yeah, okay, you're right.
Please keep that part in. Shall we move on? Do you have anything else to add about the voice actor, or should we move on to my next note? Okay. So after one of my other favorite lines in the movie, which is, don't cops run red lights? Oh yeah, some do. Not your dad. Which is a great line. We then pull up to Miles's new school, Brooklyn Visions Academy, and we learn some quick facts, sort of exposition, but it was very quick and very, very natural. One thing we learn is that he's been at the school for 2 weeks.
Yeah, it's, beginning of the school year, and that kind of matches with sort of the background we've seen. The leaves are falling off the trees, and that's about it.
Yeah, and you also mentioned this in a previous minute during the Peter Parker montage, that there's a lottery number, and you brought it up that Miles got into the school through a lottery. And this is the part where we hear that, where Miles goes like, the only reason I'm here is because I won that stupid lottery. Then his dad spits back, no, you passed the entry test just like everyone else, once again implying that he's a pretty smart kid.
Yeah, it's an interesting change they had from the comics where, in the comics, Miles still goes to Brooklyn Visions Academy. It is a charter school, and each year they hold a lottery to see who gets in. And in the comics, like, Miles was super excited about being able to go to this school, whereas here it seems like he's a little bit more apprehensive about it and doesn't really want to do it as much, which is an interesting change that they had.
Mm-hmm. And I think part of the reason is that there's an interesting theme that I'll get to in a minute, but I want to know if you spotted this, that at 35 seconds, did you see Miles's roommate crossing the street in the background?
Oh, no, I did not.
Yeah! Well, his dad is talking, I forget what, I think it's during the entry test line. I looked in the back, I'm like, hey, wait! That's his roommate! It's a very, like, distinct, it's a very distinct design. So I'm not like, oh, maybe it is. Like, no, he has, like, the same beanie. He's, like, reading a book. Like, he has the headphones on that we see him later with, too. Like, it is him. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. Then we get the Uncle Aaron conversation, I believe. Oh, no, first, this was the one note that I was a little confused about earlier, and then I remembered what I meant. It's speaking about opportunity. And his dad is like, you have a real opportunity here. And just that seems to be a very interesting outlook. And following that is, do you want to end up like your Uncle Aaron? Miles responds, what's wrong with Uncle Aaron? He's a good guy. His dad heavy sighs. And he responds with, I didn't write down this line, so I might get it wrong. We make choices in life. Miles quickly responds, it doesn't feel like I have a choice. And his dad responds with, you don't.
Yeah, it's a very, like, sudden, it seems like Uncle Aaron is sort of a trigger point for his dad. And, we're not really sure 100% why they had the falling out yet. Mm-hmm. But it's definitely something that quickly gets his dad riled up.
Yeah, and this is what I was saying earlier, like, I didn't really mean, like, foreshadowing, but, like, we get a clear defining of the two relationships. Miles is like, what's wrong with him? Like, he's chill, he's a cool guy, like, I like him. And his dad is like, no, he's not really as good as you think. Like, you can clearly see the clear defining relationships.
Yeah, it's also, like, that same sort of, like, parents trying to protect their kids from knowing the full truth, and he doesn't want to just outright say, like, no, you can't, he's a bad guy, but at the same time, like, he's trying to, like, steer him away, even though he can clearly tell that, like, Miles does look up to his uncle.
Yeah, but that quick cutoff shows, like, the change in the comic from him wanting to go to him not wanting to go helps introduce this theme that we see throughout the movie, and we'll touch upon as we go through it, of Miles not really having choices in this. And again, we'll bring up more, but, like, he doesn't get a choice to go to the school. His parents are making him. Is the first one we see. It's interesting along down the lines, like, how much you see. It's almost like the hero's journey in a way, where, not the hero's journey, there's a specific type of hero, and I forget what the reluctant hero, where, in a way, because in the reluctant hero, and I'm gonna get part of this wrong, but, like, with the reluctant hero archetype, is that they don't want to do things, they don't want to do these things for things, but they're forced to, like, they don't have a choice. It's seen in a few movies. A good example I thought of was when I watched in college. It is a movie called Only God Forgives. It was directed, I don't know, maybe people know him. It's directed by Nicholas Winding Refn, R-E-F-N. It's a beautiful movie. It's a very interesting movie, but Ryan Gosling's character is very much sort of that reluctant hero where stuff kind of just happens around him. He doesn't really do much, but he's sort of forced in some ways to do things. But Miles, they seem to be setting up Miles a little bit as this reluctant hero who then will be changed in the story.
Yeah, I think it also ties in with, what did you call it? What did you say the theme was?
Miles not having a choice.
Okay, yeah. I think it's less Miles. I think it's less the theme they're trying to aim for is Miles not necessarily having a choice, but Miles having a lot of expectations placed on him, and that pressure of doing really well kind of builds up on that puts a lot of pressure on him, and right now in the beginning he's sort of shying away from that pressure, and it still ties in with that reluctant hero not necessarily wanting to do what's called upon him and having to find that with, like his dad said, with great
ability comes great accountability. I still love that line. And like, I believe I talked about it in a previous episode where in one of my college classes we were doing speeches and the kid gave a speech about diversity in comics, and he brought up that whole, with Spider-Man, with Peter Parker's Spider-Man, a heavy theme was responsibility. While with Miles and his Spider-Man, it's definitely much more of a heavy theme of expectations. And he even tied that into how, like, just how different cultures, like, when you're in a person of color, there's an expectation, but, like, as, someone who's not a person of color, you're more of, like, oh, you have to be responsible type thing.
Yeah.
That's a different topic altogether, but I thought that was...
It ties in with... like, oh, when, someone who's white does something bad, they're a bad person. But when someone black does something bad, then, it's everyone who is black is bad. And it's this, not that that's the right way of looking at things, it's just that's the way a lot of times it's portrayed as.
Or a good example that this kid brought up is that depending who's looking at you, you have a different expectation. So, like, for like an outsider, for like people who maybe don't know many people of color, well, they expect these stereotypes of being, a hoodlum, a crook. Again, terrible stereotypes, but that was also a very common stereotype for a long time.
I mean, it still is.
But it very much is. But for many many of my friends who are people of color will say their families have very high expectations for them or even high expectations for themselves to do everything in their power to not portray those stereotypes.
Yeah, they're held to a higher level of standard than what might typically be expected of, or what should typically be expected of someone in their position.
This actually almost kind of ties into something that Miles says about the school, which I kind of want to touch on a little bit because I thought it was interesting. But, like, one of his excuses, like, he doesn't want to go, like, one of his reasons he wants to go back to Brooklyn Middle is he says that Visions is elitist and he would rather be one with the people. So I might be looking a little too much into that line, but I thought the line was very cool and ties into this because he's like, if I'm going to Visions, it's almost like he's going to have a higher expectation of him that he doesn't want to take, where if he's at Brooklyn Middle, he can stay more under the radar.
I kind of disagree with that reading.
Okay. How did you read those lines? It was an interesting...
I think part of it is that it's a mix between just him being out of his element and why do I disagree with that? I feel like you're making Miles out to be too much of a deadbeat.
No, I'm not saying that.
That's what it feels like.
I do think I might be reading too much into it. I think it is a little bit like, I'm not trying to make him out to be a deadbeat, but you saw how relaxed and comfortable he was when he was talking with his friends from Brooklyn Middle. And I think, like you said, it is a comfort thing for him, is really where it motivates it. And having those expectations on him makes him very uncomfortable where at Brooklyn Middle, he doesn't have those expectations, so he can, like, stay in his comfort zone. That's sort of what I was saying. I wasn't trying to make him, like, out to be like, oh, he just doesn't want to accomplish anything. It's more of, like, to be at Visions and have this high expectation of him at this school makes him very uncomfortable.
Yeah, I guess I guess it's the fact that, like, this new expectation placed on him that because this is considered a better school than the one that he came from, and he doesn't know anybody here. He's brand new. It's probably because it is they boarded the school during the week, so he's seeing a lot less of his family than when he was at Brooklyn Middle. That it's just a lot of newness that he's probably, like, afraid of and doesn't want to have to stand up to that. And it definitely seems that the courses here, well, we'll see in
2 minutes from now, in minute 8,
when he's going through the classes, that it's a much more rigorous, like the academics are a lot more rigorous, and so he's feeling a bit overwhelmed from that as well, and just wants to I guess go back into his comfort zone.
Yeah, that's sort of what I was kind of going for when I was talking about that. I worded it poorly, I think, so apologies on my part for that. But we're pretty much on the same page that line is, like, him trying to weasel out of being out of his comfort zone. It doesn't work, but he tries.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you know what? I appreciate that. The only thing I have left for this minute, which is more lighthearted, is that at 55 seconds, Miles and his dad have very similar, if not, like, the same sort of grump face.
Yeah.
Like, they both, like,
They both look like, Miles is definitely his father's son.
Yeah, it's not like, oh, they just photoshopped his face. Like, they're clear, because the artists, shout out to the animators here for really giving them 2 very distinct faces. But yeah, they have, like, the same face, and it's like, oh, I see the relation.
Yeah, they also both, turn away from each other at the same time and take a breath in at the same time.
Yeah, it's a neat little moment of, like, during this whole scene too, they kind of, like, battle each other, and you can kind of see their relationship. Oh, like, they argue very similarly. But that point right there where they look away, they have, like, the same face, they sigh and breathe at the same time. It's like, oh yeah, you two are definitely related.
Yeah. There's only 2 things I have left. Two quick things. One, back when they're still pulling up to the school, the overhead shot that they do, where he's pulling down as he goes through the traffic light.
And you see the subway over top. One of my favorite aerial shots.
Yeah, I think this is, this is definitely one of my favorite shots in the film. It feels very much like a city shot. It is a little.
It really does.
Not odd, but it kind of threw me at first, because when they cut to inside the car, the intersection they just went through and, like, where the car is to the street that they're passing, as they pull up to the school, isn't the same. And it kind of, like, threw me at first. I was like, wait, what was I just, did I miss, what's going on? But, it is just a way to show the passage of the time, however long that took them.
Yeah, I think it was a good way to show passage of time. I think it was kind of a nice little beat to have, like, the music play over.
Yeah.
For those curious, it's still memories from the previous minute, but now it's just louder and out of the radio.
And I imagine Miles' dad through the whole thing is just saying
more things
more
about
old things. No. Oh yeah, that, and making more references that just make Miles think he's even older than he is.
Yeah. One thing I also very much appreciate about the scene, that it is very comic book, I think. Where, like, when you see characters, like, traveling and they're not really saying anything, they'll just have, like, a scenery shot.
Yeah. Yeah, just a way to to show the movement.
Yeah, it's a cool way to show movement. And to see it in that animated movie, it really helps reinforce that whole, like, this is a comic book come to life type thing.
Yeah. And the last thing I had was, it's at the very, very end of the minute, as Miles is getting out of the car, a cab or, some vehicle passes by in the background with a sign on the back. And it's advertising.
Is it the bus? I think it's a bus.
No, this is a car. It's a green car.
Oh, that's a taxi then.
And it's advertising a book by George Saunders called Custer in Purgatory. And George Saunders is a real person. He is he's some of his notable works include Civil War Land in Bad Decline, Pastorilla, 10th of December, and Lincoln in the Bardo. And some of his notable awards are in 2006 he won the MacArthur Fellowship. In 2013 he won the Penn Malamud Award. So he's been writing since 1986.
Wow. Is the book being advertised an actual book of his, or did they just make up the title?
No, it is just a made-up title.
Or maybe it's a book soon to come.
Could be.
Probably not.
But I doubt it.
Yeah. What was the title of it again?
The title of the book in the movie is Custer in Purgatory. I imagine it's named after the Civil War general George Custer.
That's cool. And that was the last note you had?
Yep, that's all I have for this minute.
That is all we have for this episode. Thank you for listening. If you wish to reach out and or see more from us, we are on Twitter at SpiderVerseMin, M-I-N. On Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube is all the same at Spiderverse Minute.
If you want to reach directly out to us, feel free to shoot us an email at podcast@spiderverseminute.com.
See you next time.
Bye.